Sounds good. Well, good evening. Sorry about the late start, but this evening we are on November 12th, 2025, we are having a committee of the whole to discuss legislation on loitering, and I will now turn this meeting over to our mayor.
This came up, thank you, primarily because we had a group of individuals that was congregating towards a business that was primarily focused on children. They weren't necessarily using drugs. Sometimes they were, and our officers would go out and say, you can't do that, just like marijuana, things like that, or smoking, standing there. There's not benches in that area. They're a little ways down the block. Long story short, we would go out and talk to them, ask them to move along, but they were not really committing a crime, but it was making parents, the business owner, uncomfortable. It was blocking the business a bit. And so we said, well, we really don't have any other tools to be able to address this issue. Spoke with the law director, spoke with the police chief, and they said really the best option to be able to assist with situations like this would be a no loitering ordinance. The law director did some research, pulled some examples from other communities. That was what was presented here, was what we had seen from other communities that we felt comfortable with. Obviously, when we put that then forward, there was quite a bit of concern from the public, as you guys heard, related to the ambiguity of the language that was presented, and that it could make people feel that they were unable to enjoy our public spaces and not be in violation. So following up on that, what the law director has put together is really, there's 3 slides that I'm going to go through. And the primary focus is it took the overall language and then just put more definition around it. So the purpose of this ordinance is to promote public safety and order by prohibiting conduct that obstructs public ways or facilitates criminal activity while preserving the constitutional rights of individuals to move freely, assemble, and engage in lawful activity. Next, then we move into definition. So loitering. So loiter means to remain in a public place without apparent lawful purpose after being requested by a law enforcement officer to move along when such conduct obstructs pedestrian or vehicular traffic or interferes with lawful business on the premises. So again, if we come out, ask you to leave, you continue to not leave, or just obstructing. Public places means any street, sidewalk, park, alley, parking lot, or area open to the general public. Obstruct means to intentionally or recklessly block, hinder, or impede the free passage of pedestrians or vehicles. Next is really the prohibited conduct. So this is where you get into the more meat and potatoes. So no person shall intentionally or recklessly obstruct the free passage of any other person or vehicle on any public way, sidewalk, or public place, or remain in a public place after being lawfully ordered by a law enforcement officer to move when the officer has observed the person's conduct, A, is causing or contributing to an obstruction, or is reasonably associated with the commission, attempted commission, or solicitation of a specific unlawful act, including but not limited to prostitution, drug trafficking, or assault. And then B, no person shall be stopped or ordered to move solely for standing, walking, talking, or otherwise engaging in lawful behavior in a public place. So again, this addresses a lot of the concern. Well, if I'm just out waiting for a restaurant or I'm taking a walk, that is not what we're trying to achieve here. And then we did more clearly define what the enforcement is. So before issuing an order to disperse or move along, a law enforcement officer shall identify themselves and explain the specific conduct observed that constitute an obstruction or indicates intent to engage in a specific unlawful act. 2, the person shall be given a reasonable opportunity to comply before an arrest or citation. And 3, the officer shall document the specific conduct and circumstances leading to the enforcement action. So all things that our law enforcement currently do, but defined here so that folks understand the process. 5, the violation of this ordinance is a minor misdemeanor. Repeated violations within 12 months may be prosecuted as a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. And servability, in if any portion of the ordinance is found unconstitutional or invalid, the remaining portions shall remain in full force and effect. So again, just taking the public feedback, concerns, and trying to better define them. So that is really what we are proposing as bringing forward in the amended ordinance for consideration at council. Law Director Wagner, anything you want to add? Oh, okay.
You hear me mention it. I'll try to talk loud here. Couple things. So, number one, this language, I don't mean to stand in anybody's way, this language is an attempt to try to clear up and show a clear objective and criteria for what the city desires to do, making things more objective versus subjective. Another comment I would make is when you look at section 2, Mayor, if you go up to section 2, look at mine, under the definition of loiter, I would take, if you had a copy of this in your hand, and underline the word when on the second line under loiter, when such conduct obstructs. This isn't about going out and over-regulating people doing things. We all know better than that. When I sat and thought about this, and it was requested of me to look into it and put something together, I've been around long enough to think back to the Gus Macker days here in Findlay. That's the 3-on-3 basketball or whatever the heck it is. It got totally out of control and crazy at some of our bars and parking lots and down Main Street. Teams came from all over the state or wherever they came from. You can come up with hypotheticals all day, but you had people who were dispersed from a big fight, but then they'd go hang down at the corner, and then the other guys hang down at this corner. The officers wouldn't otherwise have anything to do. This is an attempt, I guess, to be, for the city, some kind of a tool for those situations where just nothing else applies. It hasn't escalated to disorderly conduct. It hasn't escalated to a riot, which we have a law for that, as all cities do. But just when there's just enough stuff going on that if an officer says, hey, guys, it's time to move along, and they say, well, what gives you the right to tell me that? They got a section of law that they can cite. I think that's what the city's intent is here, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, a lot of the language here in this new section, in regards to what law enforcement should do in certain steps, it's overkill. It goes without saying. The law, our police department has its own policies and procedures. We're basically putting those in there for them. Things like section 6, that wouldn't even need to be in there. That goes without saying. If a statute or ordinance is challenged for unconstitutionality for a certain provision, it doesn't throw out the whole thing. But I hope what this is an attempt to do is to show people that there is a definition into this. It's trying to be precise. It's trying to show the criteria of what's trying to be done here. Do we have these problems every day? I've been prosecuting cases for 26 years. I don't see it every day, but when we do have these problems that crop up in our world as it moves along, we got to have some tool in the toolbox. And I did review, you know, going through our ordinances of disorderly conduct, and we have an ordinance for dispersing, we have a rioting ordinance, to see if those covered it, and not all situations do they. At the same time I say that, I warn, having been through the farm animal meeting last Monday, is I could sit with lawyers and citizens all day long and come up with hypotheticals of, well, but what if? Okay, we got to draw a line somewhere. That's for police, that's for prosecutors, and that's for judges to decide the crazy outlying what ifs. So what if people are doing this, or what if that? And I gave an example, I think, on Monday night that, you know, resisting arrest. You're not supposed to resist arrest. But if we find out the guy that got arrested for resisting arrest was having a seizure, then the prosecutors, the police later on in the court system will deal with that and make that kind of case go away. It's some sort of common sense enforcement and application of what the goal for the city might be here. If we have these problems or think we might have these problems in the future, then we should have something on the books. That's what I think the mayor is looking for, and that's what we're trying to do with this ordinance. Couple other comments is I kept looking at this today. And my suggestion to council is I would probably, in section 5, Mayor, it's up there, I would probably leave it as a minor misdemeanor. I think the actual goal here is probably to give the police department some way to say, you guys got to move on because we have a section of law that says that we don't need to have a misdemeanor of the 4th degree for it. That's just my recommendation. I don't vote on those things. I would probably, in section 2, again, another comment to council. Mayor, if you can move that to section 2. We define somewhere in there, public place means any street, sidewalk, park, alley. Yeah, public place is public place, but I would probably move park out of there just because it makes me personally think, well, I can't go to the park and hang out all day. That's what parks are for. But obviously, we're looking for that when language, when such conduct is obstructing people and other activities from taking place. So if council chooses to go forward and consider this in all 3 readings and all that jazz, this would be the template. This would be the language that I would consider if you're going to do it. You can't get any more definitive. You can't get any more overkill. We're even telling the police officers what they have to do first. And I know that the chief of police has reviewed this, didn't have a problem with it. So, you know, again, we can argue constitutionality of things all day long, come up with hypotheticals of how things are unconstitutional. But really, nothing's unconstitutional till a court of law says it is, and by God, we would deal with it then, and we have before over the years that I've been here. So this is what this serves to do. I think it provides additional language and maybe some public wanted, some clarification that the public wanted, and that's all I have to say on it.
Questions, comments from council?
Rob, if so we're at 3rd reading on Tuesday, and if you're recommending that what is in front of us be modified or changed to this, is there a method that can be done by the administration so that it is in the packet, or do we have to go through a process of accepting a changed ordinance at the beginning of the meeting? Because the big thing is in my questions on asking this is that you want the, I don't want to go into the meeting on Tuesday and accept a changed ordinance and then give it 3rd reading consideration. I'd want it published so that citizens have an opportunity to read it, consider it, and respond accordingly.
Well, it would be amended in nature. Getting it out there to the public beforehand could I would imagine, easily be done. Furthermore, any time that council thinks on any kind of ordinance that there's more time for thought needed and things to sit, there could be a motion to postpone it. It'd go into the next meeting. You can do a lot of things, but it could be done in the right way for the next meeting if that's the desire of council. If it's the desire to ask more questions, it could be postponed meeting to meeting.
So I think what Law Director Fagner and I had discussed was I would submit it in a letter as draft ordinance, so it would be included in the packet, but then you guys would still procedurally have to accept an amended version at the beginning of the meeting. But that way it is documented and available for the public as part of the packet.
Ms. Frisching.
I think Grant made a good comment, Rob. Would it be prudent of us to let this current ordinance go to 3rd reading, vote it down, and introduce new legislation on Tuesday to give it the 3 readings for the public to have full consideration? Is that, since you didn't want to, since you were sounding to me like you didn't want to do that? That'd be one way to do it. I mean, that would be the cleanest way. So is that an option?
It is an option, and all of them look similar. I mean, and you could any council could make a motion collectively to remove something from consideration in a majority vote. It's gone. You can make a motion to amend, and then someone could postpone it to say, I want to think about it. Again, it's just that majority vote, whatever those requests are. They're all smooth. They all get you to the same place.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Tuesday, I'm sure, is the 2nd reading.
3rd reading. Other questions or comments? I've been doing this a while. My suggestion would be that, it's similar to what Holly and Grant said, would be that new legislation be drafted as defined tonight and given its 3 readings, and then the 3rd reading on the old legislation is thrown out. That would be my, just a reminder to council that it would have, the 3rd reading would have to precede the last meeting in December. Mr. Wobser.
I appreciate that, John. I think my thought would be we would amend and postpone. Postpone at least until we have to postpone to a certain date, according to Mr. Feigner. Thank you for the new term on no tabling involved, to the first meeting of December. And then if we find something comes up that we need a little bit more time, we still have 1 more meeting left in this council's tenure, and we could always go postpone 1 more meeting if we needed to. Understood. Thank you.
And that makes sense because you guys are, this council's knee deep into this thing as long as it's been brewing since, I don't know, July. So that would make sense. That would allow you to still be the same council to deal with its finality.
Ms. Fisher.
So I think either way, we would have 3 readings if we had a reading on the 18th and 2 in December. But moving past that, Rob, questions for you are, with having this ordinance in place, how would it have changed the situation in front of the music store on Broadway? Because it sounds like you addressed it if they were smoking, doing illegal drugs or activity. We addressed that. So what did that move them along? I would think. And if it, so I guess what would this have done additionally? This is my question.
Then the prior draft?
No, the scenarios that were brought to us about the music, the kids' music area on Broadway, and you said there was illegal activity, drugs or something going on, and people with no purpose sitting there, in your opinion, not your opinion, but people's opinion. How would this change it if we already addressed what the illegal activity was? Did it not move it along?
Well, I don't know if it did or not. The mayor may have an answer on that one.
I don't want to get in trouble. So they were not always doing illegal activity. If they were doing illegal activity, then we were able to address it. There was instances, though, because somebody complained about their illegal activity, then in what could have been said a retaliatory fashion, just lingering outside of the business, loitering outside of the business for prolonged periods of time, not breaking any laws, but just sitting on the sidewalk, sitting against their building, leaving their trash, not really breaking laws, but that's why we needed.
That's what this just said.
Right. That's
This
what
says
we
that they're
need.
not breaking a law if,
That's why we need this. That's the issue that we're trying to resolve. If somebody is just sitting obstructing a business and
obstructing, but we weren't having that,
intimidating,
right?
they were blocking the business. They were deterring business from coming to the classes. So they were impacting their business because parents didn't want to walk their kids through it, but they weren't necessarily, if they're breaking the law, then we can hold them accountable. In this instance, this scenario, we need something like this to assist.
So my second question is for Rob. Rob, when I managed properties in Findlay, one of the biggest problems I had was panhandling, which is loitering. And at that, so those are people that are in public place and they're stepping out into traffic, or they're blocking people, or stopping, or interfering in people's daily activity, however you want to say it. And it was very, very clear to me, this was before I was on council, this is where the panhandling ordinance came from, because we can't tell them they can't be on public place. When our grass was gone and we wanted to fertilize our grass and water it, I got a call from the law director saying, Holly, you can't do that. You're obstructing them from being able to panhandle because they're in a public place. So will this address that, or is this going to address panhandling as well, so we won't have that problem throughout the city?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but I thought we had a panhandling ordinance.
Well, this is loitering. They would be loitering, and they would be obstructing public space, walking into traffic, all the things you're listing.
well, we would be charging them under that ordinance. But the only thing that I can think of when I keep looking at this and the idea of administration is going back to the Gus Macker days. You know, you had a big fight go down with 30 people, and then the police try to disperse it, and one group hangs under one street light and the other group hangs under another street light. They're not breaking any laws, but it's time to move on, folks, because this is going to turn into something bad. The panhandling statute, as far as I know, doesn't allow for people to step into the road, reach into cars.
Well, correct,
those
but
different
it
things.
happens, and that's. I just feel like some of this wording could also be addressing that, because now that's what they're doing. They're loitering on public place, right?
Yeah, it would just be a selective for law enforcement or for the prosecutor's office to pick which section they want to use to charge somebody under. I mean, I look at it this way. I'm famous for my bad examples, but if you're obstructing justice, that means typically to me as a prosecutor, it means that an officer is wanting to talk to you and you run away, okay? Or they say, hey, you got a warrant and you run. But that's also resisting arrest, right? Because you're about to get arrested. So do we charge them for obstructing or charge them for resisting arrest? We could use either one. So usually prosecutors just look at it and say, what facts best fit what they did? Let's use that ordinance.
So what
So
we
it's-
have in ordinances right now has more teeth than this being a, what misdemeanor? I forget how we, minor misdemeanor. So doing illegal drugs has more teeth. Being aggressive with somebody and making a domestic or whatever has teeth.
Mr. Russell?
Rob, is it possible to loiter on private property?
I don't think so. When the owner tells you to go, it turns into a trespass.
Mr. DeArmond?
Rob, is this language homegrown, or is this from another city's ordinance, or where did this language come from?
Well, I can partially answer that. I have an intern who helps me and works for me for free, and he's got access to legal research software that I do not have, don't know how to use anymore, and it's very expensive. So I think it has come from a compilation of other cities in Ohio and probably even across the country of what they've done and how they define it. It's also based on some case law that's out there. There's arguments that, you know, an ordinance can be vague because it doesn't define what the wrong conduct is, and you can go round and round and round at that in the law school lobby if you want. But this would be more of one that's taking all of that into account, and in my mind is probably overkill. But if this is the way that the city wants to proceed, it's as good as you're going to get as far as the drafting goes, I think.
Hearing no other questions, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Niemeyer, second, Mr. Palmer. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We are adjourned.